December 19th, 1944, Verdun, France. Eisenhower asks Patton when he can attack north to relieve Bastogne. Patton answers, December 22nd, 3 days. Several generals in the room laugh. Eisenhower frowns. Patton wasn't joking. 3 days later, Third Army attacked exactly as promised, having turned 90 degrees through winter terrain in 72 hours. That's Patton. Not the movie version, not the legend, the real thing. This is about 5 specific moments when Patton did things that made both allies and enemies realize this man doesn't operate like anyone else. No motivational speeches, no movie scenes, just the decisions that earned him the reputation as the most feared American general of World War II. Let's go. Number 5. Sicily, the race that humiliated Montgomery. July 1943, Sicily. The Allied invasion plan splits the island between 2 armies. Montgomery's 8th Army drives up the east coast toward Messina. Patton's 7th Army protects Montgomery's flank. Support role, secondary mission, exactly where the British wanted the Americans. Patton read the plan and immediately hated it. Not because it was bad strategy, it made perfect military sense. Montgomery was Britain's best general. The Americans were less experienced. Let the professionals handle the main objective. But Patton didn't join the army to play second fiddle to anyone. July 11th, the invasion begins. Montgomery's forces land and push north toward Messina as planned. Careful, methodical, building overwhelming force at each position before advancing. Patton lands on the west coast and immediately ignores his orders. Instead of protecting Montgomery's flank, he drives his 7th Army straight across Sicily's interior, through mountains, across terrain British planners said was impossible for armor. His staff objects, "Sir, we're supposed to be supporting 8th Army." Patton's response, "We're heading to Messina." The race is on. Patton's forces move with a speed that shocks everyone. He personally drives to the front, pushing commanders to move faster. When units report they need time to consolidate, Patton relieves commanders on the spot. One division commander complained about supply difficulties. Patton told him, "I don't want to hear excuses. I want to hear you've captured Palermo." Within days, 7th Army reached Palermo, a major city that wasn't even in the original plan. Montgomery is still grinding slowly up the east coast, facing heavy German resistance. Patton turns his entire army east. Now he's driving toward Messina on a parallel route to Montgomery. The British are furious. This wasn't the plan. Patton is treating the campaign like a personal competition. They're right. That's exactly what he's doing. August 10th. Patton's forces are approaching Messina. Montgomery's 8th Army is still 30 miles away. Patton orders a final push. He wants to enter Messina first, even if it's only by minutes. August 17th, 10 a.m. Patton's lead elements roll into Messina. He personally enters the city in his command vehicle, gets out, and waits. Montgomery arrives several hours later. The moment he sees Patton already in Messina, Britain's celebrated general realizes he's been beaten, not by Germans, but by the American cowboy everyone underestimated. Patton greets him cheerfully. "It was a horse race, Monty. I won." Montgomery never forgave him. But more importantly, German intelligence took notice. Patton had covered more ground through worse terrain in less time than Britain's best general. And he'd done it by refusing to follow the careful, methodical approach that defined British warfare. Wehrmacht officers filed reports. This American general thinks differently, moves faster, takes risks professionals wouldn't consider. Sicily was the first time German high command marked Patton as dangerous. It wouldn't be the last. Number 4. Operation Fortitude, the ghost that fooled Hitler. Spring 1944. Hitler obsesses over one question: where will the Allies invade France? German intelligence monitors every Allied general, tracks their movements, analyzes their significance. And the pattern becomes clear. George Patton commands 1st U.S. Army Group, stationed across from Pas-de-Calais, the shortest route to Germany. Hitler holds a conference with his generals. The Allies will not waste Patton on a diversion. He is their best offensive general. Where Patton is, the real invasion comes. Makes perfect sense. The Allies wouldn't sideline their most aggressive commander during their most important operation. So Hitler keeps his strongest defensive force, 15th Army, 15 divisions, at Calais, waiting for Patton. June 6, 1944, D-Day. Allies land at Normandy, not Calais. Hitler isn't worried. This is the diversion. The real invasion, Patton's invasion, is still coming. Days pass, weeks pass. Patton stays at Calais. July 1944. Intelligence finally confirms the truth. First U.S. Army Group doesn't exist. The equipment is inflatable. The radio traffic is fake. The entire force is a phantom. Patton commanded an army of ghosts. Here's what made this brilliant. The Allies used Hitler's respect for Patton as a weapon. They knew German intelligence would think strategically, would assume the best Allied general wouldn't be wasted on deception. That assumption kept 15 German divisions frozen at Calais, waiting for an invasion that never came, while the real battle raged at Normandy. Patton didn't fire a shot, didn't move a single tank, but he tied down more German forces than any other Allied general that summer. By using his reputation. This is when Hitler began to fear Patton personally. Not because of what Patton did, but because the Allies knew Hitler would react to Patton's mere presence. They'd gotten inside his head, and they used Patton to do it. August 1st, 1944. The ghost becomes real. Patton activates Third Army in France, and Hitler is about to learn what happens when you give Patton a real army. Number 3. The France Blitz. 400 miles in 3 weeks. August 1944. Allied forces had been grinding through Normandy for 2 months. Progress measured in hundreds of yards. Casualties mounting. Operation Cobra finally cracks the German line. Bradley's First Army creates the breach. Then Patton explodes through it. Third Army doesn't advance, it detonates across France. August 1st, Third Army activates near Avranches. August 10th, 200 miles into France. August 25th, Paris liberated. September 1st, approaching the German border. 400 miles, 3 weeks. To put this in perspective, the entire Normandy campaign, June through July, gained about 50 miles. Patton gained 400 in less time. How? By violating every rule of conventional warfare. Armies are supposed to consolidate gains, secure flanks, wait for supply lines to catch up. Patton did none of this. His units advanced so fast they outran their fuel trucks, so Patton ordered them to capture German fuel depots. When that wasn't enough, he borrowed fuel from other Allied units without asking permission. Bradley complained to Eisenhower, "Patton is stealing our gasoline." Eisenhower's response, "Is he winning? Yes, but then let him steal." German commanders filed panicked reports. Unable to establish defensive line, enemy advances faster than we can deploy. American armor observed in sectors not identified as threatened. Patton's location changes daily, cannot predict next objective. This is what terrified the Wehrmacht: unpredictability. German military doctrine was built on predicting enemy movements, calculate capabilities, anticipate objectives, deploy forces accordingly. Patton made prediction impossible. Sometimes he bypassed major cities. Sometimes he assaulted them directly. Sometimes he advanced on 3 axes simultaneously. Sometimes he concentrated everything on a single thrust. No pattern, no consistency, just relentless forward movement. One German division commander later recalled, "Fighting Patton was like fighting weather. You knew it was coming, but you couldn't prepare for where it would strike." By late August,
Third Army had liberated more French territory than all other Allied armies combined. Wehrmacht officers began asking about Patton at every briefing, not Allied forces generally, Patton specifically, because stopping Patton required different planning than stopping other generals. Other commanders followed doctrine. Patton followed instinct, and instinct is impossible to counter systematically. September 1944. Third Army reaches the German border, then stops. Not because Germany stopped them, because they literally ran out of fuel. For 1 month, logistics accomplished what Wehrmacht arms couldn't, stopping Patton. But German commanders knew this was temporary. Eventually, the fuel would arrive, and when it did, Patton would start moving again.
Number 2. The Bulge, 90 degrees in 72 hours. December 16th, 1944, 5:30 a.m. Hitler launches his last major offensive. Hundreds of German tanks smash through American lines in the Ardennes. Entire divisions surrounded. Bastogne cut off. Allied command in chaos. December 19th, Eisenhower calls an emergency conference in Verdun. Every senior Allied commander attends. The mood is grim. The question, who can relieve Bastogne? Nobody has a good answer. Pivoting entire armies through winter terrain takes weeks. Bastogne will fall long before reinforcements arrive. Then Eisenhower asks Patton directly, "When can you attack north?" Patton doesn't hesitate. December 22nd, 3 days from now, with 3 divisions. The room goes silent. Several generals think he's grandstanding. This is vintage Patton, making impossible promises to look good. Bradley looks skeptical. Montgomery's chief of staff openly doubts it. Eisenhower says the word that stung Patton for months. "Don't be fatuous, George." Fatuous, meaning foolish, showing lack of intelligence. But Patton wasn't being fatuous. He'd anticipated this exact scenario. Before arriving at Verdun, he'd ordered his staff to draft 3 separate attack plans for turning Third Army north. The plans were already written, the orders already prepared. All he needed was permission. Eisenhower, seeing Patton is serious, gives it. Go ahead. December 22nd, 3 days after the meeting. Third Army attacks north, exactly as promised. Patton had turned 133,000 men, thousands of vehicles, and 3 full divisions 90 degrees through ice and snow in 72 hours. Military historians still debate how he did it. The answer? He didn't wait for perfect conditions. He created movement through chaos. Units didn't wait for complete orders. They moved on fragmentary instructions. Commanders didn't wait for confirmation. They made decisions at the front. Supply officers didn't wait for approval. They requisitioned what they needed and moved. It was organized chaos, barely controlled pandemonium, and it worked. December 26th, Third Army breaks through to Bastogne. The siege is lifted. Hitler's offensive stalls. The last German gamble in the West fails. And Patton proved something crucial. Conventional military wisdom said what he did was impossible. He did it anyway. German commanders filed after-action reports with genuine disbelief. One wrote, "Patton achieved in 3 days what our staff calculated would require 2 weeks minimum." This is when Hitler allegedly made his famous assessment. According to multiple German officers present in the final bunker conferences, Hitler said Patton was the one Allied general who truly understood speed warfare, the one who fought the way Germany was supposed to fight. Fast, aggressive, attacking before the enemy could react. Hitler had built the Blitzkrieg. Patton perfected it and turned it against Germany with devastating effect. Number 1. The Rhine crossing, beating Montgomery with 0 publicity. March 1945. The Rhine River is the last major barrier before Germany's heartland. Crossing it will require massive planning, air support, artillery preparation. Montgomery announces he'll cross the Rhine with Operation Plunder. Elaborate set-piece battle, airborne assault, weeks of preparation, maximum publicity. Patton watches these preparations with quiet amusement. March 22, 1945, night. While Montgomery is still preparing, Patton's 5th Infantry Division quietly crosses the Rhine at Oppenheim. No air support, no artillery preparation, no announcement. Just infantry in assault boats crossing under cover of darkness. By dawn, they're on the other side, bridgehead established. Patton calls Bradley. Don't tell anyone, but we're across. Bradley asks why the secrecy. Patton explains, Montgomery is crossing tomorrow with massive fanfare. Let him have his moment. March 23rd, Montgomery launches Operation Plunder with overwhelming force. The crossing succeeds. Press coverage is extensive. Churchill himself watches from the riverbank. That afternoon, Patton calls Bradley again. Brad, for God's sake, tell the world we're across. I want the world to know 3rd Army beat Montgomery by 24 hours. The announcement goes out. Press learns Patton crossed the Rhine the night before Montgomery, with a fraction of the resources, without elaborate planning, while Montgomery was still rehearsing. But Patton isn't finished. He drives to his pontoon bridge over the Rhine, walks to the middle, stops, then unzips his fly and urinates into the river while photographers capture the moment. When asked why, Patton grins, I've been looking forward to this for a long time. This wasn't just Patton being crude, it was calculated psychological warfare. He'd beaten Montgomery across the Rhine, beaten him quietly, efficiently, with minimal fuss, then made sure everyone knew it, and urinated in Germany's greatest river to punctuate the point. German commanders who read the reports understood the message. Patton wasn't just crossing rivers, he was humiliating Germany while making it look easy. This is why Patton terrified the Wehrmacht more than any other Allied general. Not because he had more resources, not because he was smarter, but because he operated on pure aggression and refused to be constrained by what professional soldiers said was possible.
5 moments, 5 times Patton did what nobody thought possible. Raced Montgomery across Sicily when he was supposed to play support. Fooled Hitler with a phantom army by weaponizing his own reputation. Blitzed 400 miles across France while other armies measured progress in hundreds of yards. Turned an entire army 90 degrees in winter when experts said it would take weeks. Crossed the Rhine quietly, beat Montgomery, then urinated in it for emphasis. These weren't accidents, weren't luck, weren't exaggerations. These were calculated decisions by a general who understood something most professionals didn't. Speed is violence. Aggression creates opportunity. Unpredictability is a weapon. Patton terrified the Germans because he fought the way they were supposed to fight, but faster, more recklessly, with less concern for conventional limitations. He terrified the British because he kept beating their best generals while ignoring their careful doctrines. And he frustrated American command because he won battles while violating every rule they tried to impose. Was he perfect? No. The slapping incidents, the Hammelburg raid, his mouth, his ego. But was he feared? Absolutely. Because when armies needed someone to do the impossible, they called Patton. And he delivered. Every single time. Real history is better than the myths. These moments actually happened. No Hollywood exaggeration needed. Subscribe for more stories where we break down what actually made military legends legendary. Because the truth is always more interesting than the legend.